We have just passed the halfway point of the NHL season. While there's still a lot of hockey left to be played and a lot to be decided, I feel like it's never too early to get excited about the playoffs. So today, we're going to take a look at 5 potential playoff series that I really, really want to see this year. Let's get started. Hey everybody, so I know we're still a ways away from the NHL playoffs this year. We're not even to the All-Star break yet. There's a lot of hockey left to be played in the regular season, but I was kind of looking through the standings today and started to kind of look at what the playoff matchups would be if the season were to end today. And it got me thinking about the playoffs, thinking about the postseason, and some matchups that I would really, really want to see this year. Matchups that would have me really excited, on the edge of my seat, and make me feel like those are can't miss games. I would want to watch every single one of them in that series if they were to happen this season. So we're going to talk about 5 of those series here today that really jump out to me as potential fantastic playoff matchups that would be must-watch hockey if these teams met. Let's get started. Let's take a look at them. Starting with the Eastern Conference, I didn't put these in any particular order. We'll just do them East and West. Eastern Conference, starting things off, the Florida Panthers against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I want this rematch so bad this year. They met in the playoffs last year. Florida looked young, looked inexperienced, wasn't quite ready yet. I think this year's Florida team is significantly improved over last year's Florida team. They're getting better goaltending. They're better on the back end. And they're more experienced after going through what they went through last year, losing in the playoffs, but at least gaining that experience. I think Florida is in a much better position to go on a run this year than they were last year. And that could make this a really, really interesting series and not as one-sided as it was last season. Tampa, on the other hand, obviously still a great team, defending champions, won back-to-back. However, they've lost that identity third line that they had of Yanni Gourde, Blake Coleman, and Barclay Goodrow. None of those guys are there anymore, and that line was so instrumental in the Lightning's playoff success. I think this would be a fantastic series, a fantastic rematch. I think it would be a lot closer than last year's series was. And these teams absolutely hate each other. I mean, this series last year was an absolute war. If they were to play again in the playoffs for the second year in a row, I think that would get just ramped up even more than what it was last year. I am dying for a Panthers Lightning rematch this year. For it to happen, it would probably have to be the second round, because I do think that these two teams are going to finish 1-2 in the Atlantic. So it would probably be a second round series if it was to happen. But I really, really hope that it does. The other Eastern Conference series that I am dying for is the New York Rangers against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, this could end up happening in the first round or potentially in the second round, but what a series this would be, and what a dynamic this would be between these two teams. Not only do you have Rangers-Penguins, who have a long storied history against each other, and are division rivals. You've got a natural rivalry there, but just the dynamic of the Pittsburgh Penguins, the team that has been a perennial playoff team, a perennial contender for the last 15 years. The Crosby, Malkin, Letang era has seen so much success. You have this established, successful team that has really been doing it for over a decade now. They've won 3 Stanley Cups with that trio. And it's kind of like they're the heavyweight champs sitting at the top of the totem pole. And then on the other side, you have the New York Rangers. This jumpstart, young, up-and-coming team that's coming out of a rebuild. They're the new kids on the block. They haven't made the playoffs in a few years. And the Rangers will be that young team that's trying to climb to the top and knock Pittsburgh off of that pedestal and kind of take over as that contending team from this division. It's a very new versus old dynamic here. You've got the longtime contenders in the Penguins against the up-and-coming fresh start, out of a rebuild Rangers. This would be such an awesome series, such an awesome dynamic to the series between these two teams. Absolutely want to see it, and I think it would be an absolute blast to watch these two teams go at it in the postseason. Moving on now to the Western Conference. Colorado and St. Louis. Yes, I know these teams played in the playoffs last year, and it was an absolute blowout. Colorado swept the Blues 4 straight. I mean, it wasn't even close. I don't think that would be the case this year. I want to see these two teams play again because I think this year's St. Louis Blues team is much, much better than last year's St. Louis Blues team. And I think the Blues could really give the Avalanche a tough series and a run for their money this year. Plus, there's a lot of animosity between these teams. They really don't like each other. They've played in the playoffs, just last season, so you already have that rivalry building. They're in the same division. You have that rivalry already there. And you have a Blues team that, in my opinion, is much better suited this year to give the Avalanche a much tougher time in the playoffs. Now, I still probably would pick the Avalanche to win, but I think you're looking at a significantly better series than what we saw last year, and I would love to see it happen again. I want to see this Blues team up against the Avalanche as opposed to last year's Blues team against the Avalanche. I think there'd be a big difference there, and there'd be a ton of hatred in this series because these teams absolutely can't stand each other. Also out in the Western Conference, the Nashville Predators against the Minnesota Wild. This is another one that we definitely could potentially see, depending on how the final seedings work out and all of that. But both of these teams look like playoff teams. Both of these teams are having very good seasons. And for me, this would be the kind of hockey that I would want to watch on a nightly basis. These are two of the most physical, nasty teams in the NHL. They're division rivals. This would be an old school, big boy, beat the crap out of your opponent kind of series between these two, and I would want to watch every single second of it. This would be my kind of hockey. This is a series that I would go into wanting to watch every game because it is my kind of hockey. These teams would not only try and beat each other, but they would try and beat each other up as well. They're both big, physical, mean teams, don't have any problem dropping the gloves. I think if these two teams met in the playoffs, you would have massive hits, you'd have tons of scrums after the whistle, you'd have tons of fights, you maybe even get a line brawl in there somewhere. Like, these teams would be going at it. It would be an all-out war, and I would want to watch every single second of it. This would be my kind of hockey. Big boy, old school playoff hockey going at it in the postseason if the Predators and Wild faced off, and I would absolutely love every second of it. And finally, the last series, number 5, that I would love to see is the Los Angeles Kings against the Anaheim Ducks. Now, going into this year, if you told me that it was even possible that this would be a playoff series, I would have called you crazy because I didn't think the Ducks were going to be anywhere near a playoff spot, and I thought that the Kings had a shot, but probably were going to end up just on the outside looking in. Now, that may still happen. The Pacific Division is very much still open right now and up for grabs. However, right now, the Anaheim Ducks are in second, and the LA Kings are in third. This would be your 2-3 matchup in the Pacific right now, and I feel like it may not, this is probably one of the least likely ones to actually happen, given that we still have a whole half a year left. But boy, if it did, this would be absolutely awesome. Talk about a chance for a rivalry to reignite. Kings versus Ducks, both California teams, both big-time rivals, or at least have been in the past. And if you go back to like the mid-2010s, like 2015, 16, 17, around there, this was honestly one of the best rivalries in the NHL. Both of those teams were still very good at that point, very relevant, competing for playoff positioning, competing to go on playoff runs. And this was one of the best rivalries in the league back in the mid-2010s. Now, since then, it's kind of died off a little bit because both teams have gone through rebuilding periods and they haven't been as good, haven't been as competitive, and the rivalry's kind of fallen off a little bit. What better way to reignite this rivalry than a playoff series? I mean, if these two teams happen to come together and meet in the postseason, I think we could really get Kings and Ducks back to the Kings and Ducks that we were watching when they were brawling it out in 2016. It would be absolutely awesome. I would love a playoff series between these two teams. It'd be so much fun to watch. It'd get California hockey back riled up, back going, and back relevant. Even after, as you know, these three California teams have kind of had a rough last couple of years. It would get them relevant again, get them back in competition, back in the playoff picture, and it would be absolutely awesome to watch, and I'd be a huge fan if these two teams could meet in the postseason. Again, this one feels like the most far-fetched out of the five as far as actually happening, but would definitely love to see it if it did. So there you have it, everybody. Those are 5 potential playoff series for this season that I would absolutely love to see. These, I think, would be must-watch hockey. They'd be super competitive. They'd be super physical and just nasty, and there'd be a lot of animosity between teams, a lot of rivalry matchups here, and I think it would just make for really awesome, fun, entertaining, and exciting playoff hockey. And when I'm watching the playoffs, that's what I want. I mean, NHL playoffs are on a whole different level than the regular season. And you want to see it get to that just crazy intensity level that the playoffs get to when you get the right matchups. And I think all 5 of these matchups would get to that level and would be absolutely incredible to watch. So it's still a long way away from the postseason, but I love the playoffs. I love thinking about the playoffs. And those are definitely 5 matchups that I would want to watch as much of as I possibly could, because they'd be an absolute blast to sit down and see these teams go at it for 60 minutes in a night in and night out throughout a 7-game series. That'd just be incredible. So let me know what you guys think. Which playoff matchups do you want to see? Put them down in the comments. You know, which ones are you excited for? Which ones do you look at and go, wow, I really hope that that happens? Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. Please don't forget, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, links to our merchandise store, membership, and donation links are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys soon.